Hi there, my name's Leanne, and today we're making a film to introduce you to the world of wild food and foraging here in Scotland. It's a beautiful day for foraging, and today we're here in the Hoghton Country Park in Afford, Aberdeenshire, to learn a bit about the wonderful world of foraging here in Scotland. This is part of the Foraging Fortnight project funded by LEADER, and today I'm going to take you around the park. If we're lucky, we might find some mushrooms and some autumn wild fruits such as elderberries and rosehips and so on. So let's go and see what we can find. Okay, so I've just wandered a few yards from the car park and I've already found a wonderful edible that we can forage. This is a really accessible spot. You could even access this area with a wheelchair. And in Scotland, we are legally entitled to forage for anything that we like, as long as we have a right of access to that land. And of course we have the right to roam in Scotland, so it's really rather wonderful. And as long as we don't take too much produce, we just take enough to feed our family or put on our own kitchen table, then you're absolutely fine to do that. So this is Japanese quince. It's very similar to quince, but up here in the north of Scotland we don't really get quince itself. It's too cold up here for quince. But this makes a fantastic alternative. The fruit itself is very hard and quite dry and sour, so it's not something that you would eat raw. But cooked into a jelly or a kind of membrillo kind of quince cheese, as it's known, it's absolutely wonderful. It also makes a great liqueur if you add it to gin or vodka with some sugar, shake it up and leave it for a few months as well. So I'm going to take a few of these and do something with them later. Okay, so here are some Japanese quince that are a little bit more mature. They're a bit yellower, a little bit riper. Some people prefer to use them at this stage, especially after a frost, when the flavours can sometimes be a bit more easily released by the fruit when cooking. I find that the flavour from the green ones is great too, so it's really a matter of experimenting and personal preference. Here we have elderberry. Elderberry is perhaps one of the best known of the wild edibles here in Scotland. Elderberry is absolutely brilliant for you. It's full of vitamins, it's incredibly good for your immune system. In early summer it produces these sprays of beautiful creamy white coloured flowers that make the most delicious cordial, which really is just the taste of summer. And then in autumn they produce these berries. Very popular to forage for making into syrups and jellies and things like that. Best harvested when they're darker, almost kind of a black purple colour, and it's really important as well to thoroughly cook these berries and remove any of these twiggy bits as much as possible as well before you cook them. Otherwise the raw berries can be mildly toxic. Foraging's wonderful, but you really need to know what you're foraging for and be 100% certain of the identity of what you're putting into your basket. And also, just to do your reading, invest in a good book, maybe go on a foraging course and learn about these different species. Now, there's an awful lot of research going into this fruit at the moment because it's incredibly powerful. It's very full of vitamins, very immunity boosting. So a really great thing to do with this fruit is to make it into a syrup, which you can either take by the teaspoon during the winter months or in a hot tea, and that will help you to fend off colds and flus through the winter months. Okay, so here we've got some beautiful crab apples. This is another real foraging favourite, wonderful autumnal hedgerow fruit. Crab apples obviously are related to apples. There are around somewhere between 40 and 60 varieties of crab apples in the UK that we can forage for. They make fantastic jellies and syrups. You can put them into liqueurs and things like that. But they're also really high in pectin. So if you want to make a jelly with something like rowan berries, for example, you can add in a handful of crab apples and it'll increase the pectin and help the jelly to set more quickly. This is another fruit that has to be cooked though. Don't try and eat these raw, they're very hard and very sour, so much better cooked. Okay, so we're lucky enough today to have found one of the best edible mushrooms out there. This is the chanterelle. It's beloved of chefs and foodies all over the world, but it really grows very abundantly here in the northeast of Scotland. It loves growing in amongst the birch. You can find it also with beech and sometimes in with pine, especially where pine is mixed in with birch too. With chanterelles, you're looking for this kind of yellow, yolky orangey yellow colour of the flesh. And one key feature of a chanterelle, which will help you to distinguish it from anything else, is the gills, which are actually just wrinkles on the surface, on the underside of the mushroom. And if you just scrape those off, you'll see that they just come away and reveal the white flesh underneath. They're called false gills. And if you break open the mushroom, you'll see that the flesh on the inside is white. And if you smell the mushroom, they have the most wonderful fruity aroma, almost like apricots. So these are some of the key identification features for chanterelles that will help you to distinguish this from anything potentially harmful. Of course, it goes without saying that you always have to be 100% sure of your identity when you're foraging for mushrooms, just as you do with plants. It's crucial that you know what you're eating. But yeah, this is one of the more popular mushrooms to forage for. It's an easy one to identify, and it's one that I encourage people to get out there and look for. Okay, so I've gathered a few of the chanterelles and I'll take these home. They're absolutely delicious, cooked in butter, maybe with a bit of garlic and some parsley or some other favourite herbs. And I thought I'd also show you this. This is a hedgehog mushroom. So called because underneath it doesn't have gills, it has spines like a hedgehog. And this makes this one really easy to identify. It's a relative of the chanterelle and it's equally as delicious as the chanterelle too. I've just spotted some sorrel growing in the grass here. This is sorrel. It has a V-shape cut up into the stem, very easy to identify, and it's a delicious, fresh, lemony tasting leaf which grows for a really long period through the year. And I'm going to take this home and I'm going to put it in a sauce and have this with fish. So here we are on the banks of the River Don. It's still a beautiful day and it's just so wonderful to be out here foraging. I find it a wonderful way to immerse myself in nature and to make a really meaningful connection with nature too. It's great exercise, but it's also really good for your mental well-being. I found some dog rose hips here. These are one of my favourite autumnal wild fruits to forage for. I used the hips to make cordial and jelly with, as well as using them in other ways, like putting them into puddings and using them for savoury soups and so on. All roses are edible, which means that all rose hips are edible, but you might find that you prefer the taste of some over others. And it's really important, if you're drying them for tea, that you open them up and take out the seeds and the little irritant hairs that are mingled in with the seeds on the inside of the rose hip. I prefer to cook them whole, and then I pass them through a jelly bag twice, and that's what I do when I'm making cordials and syrups with them. One more point is that it's really important to practice ethical and sustainable foraging when you're out in nature. So just be mindful not to take everything that you find, but to leave some behind for other people to enjoy, and also for nature as well.